Chapter 18. Just an Idea. Mr. Minor got up and walked over till he stood in front of Hart, almost bumping up against the kids sitting in the first row of folding desks. He raised one hand over his head and waited. Mr. Minor doing anything was unusual these days, so everyone noticed him right away. In less than 15 seconds, all the shouting stopped, and the kids settled into their desks. Bringing his hand down, Mr. Minor said, "Thanks. I just wanted to ask a question. Where did the name Winter Hope come from?" Colleen raised her hand. Mr. Minor pointed, and she said, "From Allison. She made it up, because when Cirque du Soleil makes a new show, they always give it a special name. So that's what Allison did. And we all liked it and decided to call the concert Winter Hope." "But the name itself," said Mr. Minor, "what does it mean? Winter Hope. Hope for what?" Allison raised her hand and said, "For peace. That's what I was thinking. A holiday concert could be about hoping for peace. And the holidays always come in the winter, so Winter Hope." Mr. Minor wrote P-E-A-C-E on the chalkboard in big letters. Then he stood back and pointed at it. "You know what that is? It's a theme, one big idea. If you have a theme, you can build a program around it. You've all had so many good ideas over these last few weeks. And voting to solve your problems? Just great. But if you want to pull a program together, you might want to think about Allison's idea of peace. That could really help. Anybody else have a thought about this?" Carl raised his hand and said, "So what you're really saying is I can't do my card trick, right?" Mr. Minor shook his head. "I'm not saying that at all, and it's not my concert. It's up to all of you. I'm just asking if anyone else thinks Allison's idea could be a theme. You've all come up with so many creative ideas, I hate to see any of them not get used, except that's probably impossible. But with a theme like peace, a concert could tell a story, maybe about the search for peace, or about the need for peace, about the kinds of things people have time for when they're not fighting and killing each other, like ballet and magic acts. And maybe a concert with a theme could use more of your ideas. That's all I'm saying." Less than a month ago, before the chorus according to Hart, Mr. Minor would have kept going. He would have started barking orders, giving directions, getting things organized, pushing a plan forward. Not today. He looked around at all the faces in the quiet room and said, "It's just an idea." Then he walked back over to his desk and sat down. It was exactly the right amount of help, and the right kind, too. Hart got it. Peace. The theme was like a lens, and in Hart's mind, ideas began snapping into focus. Before the room got noisy again, Hart said, "Allison's idea is great, don't you think? I mean, we can do a million things with that, don't you think?" Hart wasn't the only one who got it. Heads were nodding all around the room. Carolyn raised her hand and said, "How about if we had a narrator sort of telling a story, like Mr. Minor said? We've read plays like that in drama clubs sometimes." Ross said, "We'd have to write all that out so someone could read it, the narration, I mean." "Right," said Hart. "Only it doesn't have to be real long, but it's going to take some work. Still, I think it's a good idea, don't you? Anybody here who's not in favor of peace?" Olivia raised her hand. Hart knew what was coming, and he was ready. She said, "What about the election yesterday? Was all that just a joke?" Hart shook his head. "No, that election was fair and square. So all the things that won have to be part of the concert now, unless we all decide otherwise. We just have to figure out a way to make everything work together. And that's the whole idea of peace anyway, to make everything get along together, with no fighting." Mr. Minor felt the mood of the room begin to change. It was like a midwinter thaw, a warm front sweeping across the group, one kid at a time. Hart felt it too, and he kept talking. "I know we can do this, and peace is a huge idea. It's really important. We all have to think and work together until we figure it out. For the concert, we can do this. We really can." Everyone bought in. The kids didn't just believe Hart, they trusted him. And they also trusted themselves.